The stars were quiet that night. Lieutenant Park Taeho sat alone in his small shuttle, watching the endless darkness through the window. His mission was simple. Fly to the old battlefield, collect any useful parts from destroyed ships, and return to base. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. Taeho was 32 years old. He had served in the United Earth Fleet for 10 years. He had seen friends die. He had killed enemies. The war between humans and the Valari had taken everything from him except his sense of right and wrong. That was the one thing he refused to lose. His shuttle moved slowly through the asteroid field. Rocks the size of buildings floated past his window. Some of them were pieces of old ships, destroyed in battles that happened years ago. Taeho did not like this place. Too many ghosts lived here. The alarm on his control panel started beeping. Taeho looked down and saw something strange. A distress signal. He checked the signal twice. It was real. Someone was out there, floating in the darkness, waiting to die. Taeho knew he should ignore it. His orders were clear. Do not stop for anything. Do not take risks. The war had rules, and soldiers were supposed to follow them. But Taeho had never been good at following rules that felt wrong. He turned his shuttle toward the signal. It took him 15 minutes to find the source. When he saw it, his heart sank. An escape pod, small, barely big enough for one person. It was spinning slowly, smoke coming from a hole in its side. The metal was burned black. Whatever had happened to this pod, it had been violent. Taeho brought his shuttle closer. He used his tools to scan the pod. His screen showed him the results, and he felt his stomach turn cold. One life sign, weak but alive. The enemy. Taeho sat very still for a long moment. The Valari had killed his best friend 3 years ago. They had burned human colonies. They had shown no mercy to prisoners. Every human child learned to hate them before they learned to read. He should leave. That was what his training said. That was what his commanders would want. That was what most humans would do. But the life sign was so weak. And the pod was so small. Taeho cursed under his breath and began the docking procedure. It took him 10 minutes to connect his shuttle to the damaged pod. The air inside smelled like smoke and burned metal. Taeho wore his mask and carried his medical kit. He did not bring a weapon. He did not know why. The inside of the pod was dark. Emergency lights flickered red and orange. Taeho moved carefully, stepping over broken pieces of equipment. The life sign was coming from the back of the pod, near the emergency bed. He found her there, a child, a little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old by human counting. Her skin was pale violet, like all Valari. Her hair was silver, spread across the dirty pillow like threads of moonlight. She was unconscious, her breathing shallow and weak. Blood covered the left side of her face from a cut on her head. Taeho stood frozen. Of all the things he had expected to find, this was not one of them. A soldier, maybe. A spy. An adult who would try to kill him the moment they woke up. Not a child. Not a little girl who looked so small and helpless. He knelt beside her and opened his medical kit. His hands moved automatically, cleaning her wound, applying medicine, wrapping her head in bandages. She was cold, so he took off his jacket and wrapped it around her. She was too light when he picked her up, like she had not eaten properly in days. He carried her back to his shuttle and placed her on his own bed. He gave her water through a tube. Slowly, carefully. He turned up the heat, because Valari needed warmer temperatures than humans. He did everything he could think of, and then he sat beside her and waited. She woke up 6 hours later. Her eyes opened slowly. They were gold, bright like coins, and filled with fear. She saw Taeho and screamed. She tried to run, but she was too weak. She fell off the bed and crawled into the corner, shaking, crying, speaking words in Valari that Taeho did not understand. He stayed very still. He held up his hands to show they were empty. "It is okay," he said slowly. She did not understand his words, but maybe she understood his voice. He spoke softly, the way he used to speak to his little sister when she had bad dreams. He did not move closer. He just kept talking. Kept his hands visible. Kept his voice gentle. Quote, slowly, very slowly. She stopped crying. Teho pointed to himself. Teho, he said. My name is Teho. She stared at him for a long time. Then, in a small voice, she said, Yuri. Yuri, Teho repeated. That is a pretty name. She did not smile, but some of the fear left her eyes. Over the next 2 days, Teho learned small things about her. She had been on a ship with guards, important guards. When something attacked them, she did not know what. She only knew that alarms were screaming, and people were running, and someone put her in the escape pod and told her to hide. She had been floating alone in space for almost a full day before Teho found her. She was scared of him at first. She had been taught that humans were monsters, evil creatures who killed without reason. But Teho gave her food, and she was hungry. He gave her water, and she was thirsty. He gave her his blanket when she shivered, and did not ask for anything in return. On the second night, she fell asleep holding his hand. Teho looked at her small fingers wrapped around his. He thought about the war. He thought about all the reasons he should hate her people. He thought about what his commanders would say when they found out what he had done. None of it mattered. She was a child. She was alone. She needed help. That was enough. On the third day, the Valari warship found them. Teho saw it on his sensors first. A massive ship, bigger than anything he had ever seen up close. It moved through space like a predator. Weapons pointed at his tiny shuttle. There was no way to run, no way to hide, no way to fight. He looked at Yuri, who was staring at the window with wide eyes. That ship, she whispered. That is my mother's ship. Teho closed his eyes. Of course it was. Of course the child he had saved was not just any Valari child. The universe had a cruel sense of humor. What is your mother? He asked, already knowing the answer would be bad. Yuri looked at him with those golden eyes. She is the Admiral, she said. She commands the whole fleet. The shuttle shook as the warship locked onto them with a tractor beam. Teho took a deep breath and prepared to meet his fate. He had saved his enemy's daughter. Now he would find out what that meant. The inside of the Valari warship was cold and dark. Teho walked through long hallways made of black metal, his hands bound in front of him by glowing chains. 4 guards surrounded him, their faces hidden behind helmets, their weapons ready to fire at any moment. He had been on the warship for less than an hour, but it felt like forever. They had taken him from his shuttle without a word. They had searched him, found nothing dangerous, and chained him anyway. They had not let him say goodbye to Yuri. The last thing he saw before they separated was her face. She was crying, reaching for him, shouting something in Valari that he could not understand. A female officer had picked her up and carried her away. Yuri had screamed his name. Now Teho walked toward whatever fate waited for him. The guards led him to a large door at the end of the hallway. It opened with a soft sound, and Teho stepped onto the bridge of the warship. The room was huge, filled with screens and control panels and officers working at their stations. A great window at the front showed the stars outside, cold and distant. But Teho did not look at any of these things. He looked at the woman standing in the center of the room. She was tall, taller than most Valari he had seen in pictures. Her skin was the same violet as Yuri's, but darker, like the color of a bruise. Her hair was silver and pulled back from her face in a complicated style. She wore a uniform of deep red, covered in medals and symbols that Teho did not recognize. Her eyes were gold, just like her daughter's. But where Yuri's eyes were soft and scared, this woman's eyes were hard as stone. This was Admiral Kang Nari, commander of the Valari Second Fleet, the woman who had destroyed 12 human battle stations, the woman whose name human mothers used to frighten their children. and the mother of the little girl Teho had saved. The Admiral stared at him for a long moment. Her face showed nothing. No anger. No curiosity. No emotion. At all. She was like a statue, carved from ice. "This is the human?" she said. Her voice was deep and cold. "Yes, Admiral," one of the guards answered. "He was found with your daughter. In his shuttle." "Leave us." The guards looked surprised. "Admiral, he is dangerous. He should be." "I said leave us." Her voice did not rise, but something in it made the guards step back. They bowed quickly and left the room. The other officers on the bridge suddenly became very interested in their work, pretending not to listen. Admiral Nari walked toward Teho. Her boots made no sound on the metal floor. She stopped close enough that he could see the small scar on her chin, the tiny lines around her eyes. She was older than he had thought. The war had aged her, just as it had aged everyone. "My officers want me to kill you," she said quietly. "They say you must have kidnapped my daughter. They say you are a spy, using a child as a shield." Teho said nothing. What could he say? He was a human on a Valari warship. His words meant nothing here. "But my daughter tells a different story." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "She says you saved her. She says you were kind to her. She says you gave her your food, your blanket, your medicine." Still, Teho was silent. "She says you held her hand while she slept." Something changed in the Admiral's face. Just for a moment. So quick that Teho almost missed it. A crack in the ice. A flash of something human, or whatever the Valari version of human was. Then the door behind them burst open. "Mother!" Yuri ran across the bridge, her small feet slapping against the floor. The female officer who had taken her was chasing after her, looking horrified. But Yuri was faster. She ran straight to Teho and grabbed his leg, wrapping her arms around him, pressing her face against his knee. "Do not hurt him," she cried. "He saved me, Mother. He is good. Please do not hurt him." The bridge went completely silent. Every officer stopped working. Every eye turned to watch. A Valari child, daughter of the great admiral, was hugging a human prisoner and begging for his life. Admiral Nari looked at her daughter. Then she looked at Teho. Then she looked at her daughter again. "Yuri," she said carefully. "Come here." "No." Yuri held tighter to Teho's leg. "Yuri, promise me, Mother." The Admiral closed her eyes. When she opened them again, something had changed. The ice was still there, but it had melted just a little around the edges. "Take the human to holding quarters," she said to the officers nearby. "He is not to be harmed. Give him food and water. Make sure he is comfortable." The officers looked shocked. One of them, an older male with scars on his face, stepped forward. "Admiral, this is highly unusual. The human should be questioned or executed, or, did I ask for your opinion, Commander Bay?" Commander Bay Jinsu fell silent. His face was tight with anger, but he bowed his head. "No, Admiral, then do as I say." Yuri finally let go of Teho's leg. She looked up at him with those big golden eyes, tears still wet on her cheeks. "I will come see you," she said in broken human language. "I will not let them hurt you." Teho felt something strange in his chest, something warm. "Thank you, Yuri," he said softly. The guards took him away. His new room was not a cell, but it was not freedom either. It was small, with a bed and a table and a window that showed only stars. The door was locked from the outside, but the bed was soft, and the food they brought him was warm, and no one came to hurt him. That night, Teho lay on his bed and stared at the ceiling. He thought about his situation. He was a prisoner on an enemy warship. He should be dead. He should be in a torture room, telling them everything he knew about human defenses. Instead, he was in a comfortable room, and a little girl had promised to visit him. The universe made no sense. A soft knock came at his door. Teho sat up, confused. Who would knock at a prisoner's door? The door opened slowly. A small figure slipped inside, quiet as a shadow. It was Yuri, wearing sleeping clothes. Her silver hair, messy from bed. "Yuri?" Tejo whispered. She smiled proudly. "I talked to the guard. He is nice. He let me in." She was carrying something in her hands. A plate of food, nicer than what they had given Tejo earlier. She brought it to him and sat on the floor beside his bed. "This is from my dinner," she said. "I saved the best parts for you." Tejo looked at the food. Then he looked at the little girl who had brought it to him, his enemy's daughter, risking trouble to bring him treats from her own plate. "Thank you," he said. His voice was rough. Yuri nodded. Then she started talking. She told him about her home planet, about her friends, about her favorite animals and foods and games. She talked and talked, her voice soft and happy, as if he were not a prisoner, and she were not the daughter of his greatest enemy. Tejo listened. He asked questions. He laughed at her jokes. When she finally fell asleep, leaning against the bars of his bed, he covered her with his blanket and watched her peaceful face. He was still watching when Admiral Nari came to find her daughter 3 hours later. The Admiral stopped in the doorway. She saw Yuri sleeping. She saw Tejo sitting quietly beside her, making no move to escape or harm anyone. Their eyes met. Neither of them spoke. Then Admiral Nari walked over, picked up her sleeping daughter, and carried her to the door. She paused at the entrance, not looking back. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for saving her." Then she was gone, and Tejo was alone with the stars. The morning came with guards at Tejo's door. 2 of them, faces hidden, weapons ready. They told him the Admiral wanted to see him. They did not tell him why. Tejo expected the worst. He had been a soldier long enough to know how these things worked. First came the polite treatment, to make the prisoner feel safe. Then came the questions. Then came the pain. He followed the guards through the long hallways of the warship. Other Valari stopped to stare at him as he passed. Some looked curious. Some looked angry. One officer spat on the ground near his feet. The guards did not react. They did not take him to the bridge this time. Instead, they led him to a smaller room, warm and quiet. There was a table in the center, 2 chairs facing each other. A window showed the stars outside. On the table sat 2 cups and a pot of something hot. Admiral Nari was already there, sitting in one of the chairs. She was not wearing her formal uniform today. Her clothes were simpler, darker. She looked almost normal, almost like a regular person instead of a war leader. "Leave us," she said to the guards. "Admiral, we should stay. For your safety." Did my order sound like a question? The guards left. Tejo stood alone with the woman who could kill him with a single word. She pointed to the empty chair. "Sit." He sat. The chair was comfortable. The room was warm. None of this made sense. Admiral Nari poured liquid from the pot into the 2 cups. Steam rose from them, carrying a sweet smell that Tejo did not recognize. She pushed 1 cup toward him. "It is not poison," she said. There might have been humor in her voice. It was hard to tell. "If I wanted you dead, you would be dead already." Tejo picked up the cup. The liquid was blue and smelled like flowers. He took a small sip. It was good, sweet, and warm. "Why am I here?" he asked. The Admiral looked at him with those gold eyes. "I want to know why you saved my daughter." "That is your question?" "That is my only question." Tejo set down his cup. He thought about lying. He thought about giving some clever answer that might save his life or trick her into releasing him. But looking at her face, he knew lies would not work. She was too smart. She had spent too many years reading enemies. So he told the truth. "She was a child," he said simply. "She was hurt and scared and alone. It did not matter to me that she was Valari. She is the enemy of your people. She is 8 years old. Admiral Nari was quiet for a moment. My soldiers would not have done the same, she said. If they found a human child floating in space, they would have let it die. Or worse. I know. Does that not make you angry? Tejo thought about it. Yes, he admitted. It makes me very angry. Your people have done terrible things to mine. But your daughter did not do those things. She is just a little girl who wanted to live. The Admiral picked up her own cup and drank. Her eyes never left his face. My people believe that humans are animals, she said. That you feel no love, no kindness. That you spread across the stars, only to destroy. And what do you believe? She did not answer right away. She looked out the window at the stars, and something sad crossed her face. I believe that war makes monsters of everyone, she said finally. On both sides. They sat in silence for a while. The tea grew cold. Outside, the stars moved slowly past the window. Then Admiral Nari began to ask other questions. Not about military secrets or human defenses. She asked about Earth, about human families, about how Tejo grew up, what he loved, why he became a soldier. Tejo found himself answering honestly. He told her about his parents, who died when he was young, about his little sister, who he had not seen in 5 years, about the small apartment on Earth where he dreamed of returning someday. She listened carefully to everything. And slowly, carefully, Tejo began to ask questions of his own. He learned that Admiral Nari had not always been a soldier. She had been a teacher once, before the war. She had taught young Valari about history and poetry. She had loved her work. Then the war came, and she discovered she had a talent for strategy. Victory after victory raised her through the ranks. Now she commanded the largest fleet in the Valari Empire, and she had not read a poem in 15 years. Do you miss it? Tejo asked. Teaching? Something flickered in her eyes. Surprise? Maybe. No one had asked her that question in a very long time. Every day, she admitted. He learned about Yuri's father, a scientist who died in a human attack 3 years ago. Nari had loved him deeply. His death had frozen something inside her, turned her colder and harder than she had been before. Yuri has his eyes, she said softly. When I look at her, I am sorry, Tejo said. And he meant it. You are sorry? Nari looked at him strangely. Your people killed him. I did not kill him. And even if I had enemies who killed someone I loved, I would not blame their children for it. Gone. The Admiral stared at him for a long time. The room was very quiet. Tejo could hear his own heartbeat. You are not what I expected, she said finally. Neither are you. Something almost like a smile touched her lips. It disappeared quickly, but Tejo saw it. They talked for 3 more hours. They talked about war and peace, about duty and love, about the things they had lost and the things they still hoped to find. The teapot was emptied and filled again twice. When the guards finally came to take Tejo back to his room, the Admiral stood up. This was supposed to be an interrogation, she said. Was it? I was supposed to learn your secrets. Find weaknesses in human defenses. Did you? She looked at him, and something complicated moved behind her eyes. I learned something, she said. But I do not think it was what I expected to learn. And she nodded to the guards. Take him back. Make sure he has everything he needs. As Tejo walked to the door, she spoke again. Lieutenant Park. He turned back. This conversation does not change anything, she said. Her voice was formal again, cold again. You are still my prisoner. This is still a war. I know, Tejo said. But as he walked back to his room, he thought about the way she had smiled. He thought about how she had called him by his name, instead of just human. Something had changed. He could feel it. He just did not know yet what it meant. That night, Yuri came to visit him again. She brought a game she wanted to teach him, something Valari children played with colored stones. They sat on the floor of his room and played for hours while she laughed at his mistakes. Through the window, the stars watched silently. And somewhere on the bridge, Admiral Nari stood alone, looking at those same stars, thinking about a human prisoner who spoke to her like an equal. The prisoner transfer paperwork sat on her desk, unsigned. It would stay that way for a very long time. Weeks passed on the warship, and things began to change. Teiho's room was no longer locked. The guards outside his door became fewer, then none at all. Someone brought him new clothes, soft and warm, better than the torn uniform he had been wearing. A screen appeared on his wall one day, showing news and entertainment in Valari that he slowly learned to understand. He was still a prisoner. He could not leave the ship. He could not contact his people. But the chains that held him were becoming invisible, made of comfort instead of metal. Yuri visited him every day. She came in the morning before her lessons and in the evening after dinner. She taught him Valari words, laughing when he said them wrong, clapping when he got them right. She brought him books with pictures, children's books that helped him learn to read the strange Valari letters. "This word means star," she would say, pointing at the page. "And this word means home. And this word means friend. Friend." Teiho looked at the word for a long time. He wondered if that was what he was becoming. Admiral Nari did not visit him often, but when she did, they talked for hours. She came to his room late at night, after her duties were done, when the rest of the ship was quiet. They drank tea and discussed everything: history, philosophy, the nature of war, the possibility of peace. "My commanders are asking questions," she told him one night. "They want to know why you are still here, why you have not been transferred to a prison planet or executed." "What do you tell them?" "I tell them you have valuable intelligence." She smiled slightly. "I tell them the interrogation is ongoing." "And they believe you?" "They have no choice. I am the admiral." But Teiho could see the strain in her eyes. Being a leader meant making hard choices. Keeping him alive was becoming one of those choices. Commander Bei Jinsu was the loudest voice against him. The scarred officer had lost his brother to human soldiers years ago. He had no patience for mercy. Every time Teiho walked through the ship, he could feel Bei's eyes following him, full of hate. "You should not trust him," Bei told the admiral publicly, not caring who heard. "He is human. They are all the same. Violent, deceitful, dangerous." "My daughter was dying, and he saved her," Nari replied calmly. "What does that say about your beliefs, Commander?" Bei had no answer. But his anger did not fade. The other crew members were mixed in their feelings. Some of them ignored Teiho completely. Some watched him with curiosity, whispering to each other when he passed. A few, especially those who had children of their own, seemed almost friendly. One day, an old engineer named Grandfather Han stopped Teiho in the hallway. The old man looked at him for a long moment, then bowed his head slightly. "Thank you," he said in rough human language. "For the Admiral's daughter. My granddaughter plays with her. If Yuri had died." He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Teiho bowed back. "I did what anyone should do." "No," Grandfather Han said sadly. "You did what very few would do. That is different." The old man walked away, leaving Teiho alone with his thoughts. As the weeks went on, Teiho's life began to take on a strange rhythm. Mornings with Yuri, learning her language and playing her games. Afternoons walking through the parts of the ship he was allowed to enter, watching the Valari go about their daily work. Evenings in the observation room, looking at the stars and thinking about everything he had left behind. And nights, sometimes, with Admiral Nari, they never touched. They never spoke of anything beyond friendship. But something was growing between them, quiet and unexpected. When she laughed at his jokes, Teiho felt warm inside. When she looked sad, he wanted to comfort her. When she left at the end of the night, he found himself counting the hours, until she might return. It was dangerous. He knew it was dangerous. She was the enemy. She commanded the fleet that had killed thousands of his people. In another life, in another time, they would be trying to destroy each other. But here, on this ship, in the quiet hours of the night, she was just a woman who was lonely and tired and carrying too many burdens. One evening, Yuri dragged both of them to the observation deck. She had decided that Tejo needed to learn a Valari card game, and she needed her mother to help explain the rules. "You sit here," Yuri commanded, pointing Tejo to a cushion on the floor. "And you sit here." "Mother." "No. Closer. You need to see the cards." They ended up sitting side by side, their shoulders almost touching. Yuri sat across from them, dealing cards with serious concentration. The game was complicated. Tejo kept making mistakes. Yuri groaned dramatically every time he played a wrong card. "No, no, no," she cried. "That is not how it works. Mother, tell him." "She is right," Nari said, and her voice was warm with hidden laughter. "That was a terrible move. I am trying my best." "Your best is very bad," Yuri said, but she was smiling. They played until late, long past Yuri's bedtime. When the little girl finally fell asleep on a pile of cushions, Tejo and Nari sat together in the starlight, neither wanting to leave. "She loves you," Nari said quietly. "My daughter. She talks about you constantly. Uncle Tejo this, Uncle Tejo that." "Uncle?" "It is what she calls you now. Did she not tell you?" Tejo felt something tight in his chest. "No, she did not tell me." Nari looked at her sleeping daughter. "She has not been this happy since her father died. I did not know she was capable of this much happiness anymore. She is a wonderful child." "She is." Nari paused. "And you are a good man, Park Tejo." "I did not think I would ever say that about a human. War makes us believe lies about each other." "Yes, it does." They sat in silence, watching the stars. Tejo was very aware of how close she was. He could smell her perfume, something light and sweet. He could hear her breathing. "I should take her to bed," Nari said finally. "You should?" More silence. The stars turned slowly outside the window. "Tejo." "Yes?" She turned to look at him. Her gold eyes reflected the starlight. "I do not know what to do with you." "What do you mean?" "You should be my enemy. I should hate you. Everything I have been taught, everything I have seen in this war, tells me you are dangerous. But I do not feel that when I look at you. I feel—" She did not finish. "What do you feel?" Tejo asked softly, but she was already standing up, already picking up her sleeping daughter, already walking toward the door. "Good night, Lieutenant Park," she said. Her voice was formal again, distant again. But she paused at the doorway and looked back at him. "Good night," he said. She left. Tejo stayed on the observation deck for a long time, watching the place where she had been sitting. He thought about her words. He thought about the way she had looked at him. He thought about what it meant to be a captive who no longer wanted to escape. Outside, the cold stars moved through the endless dark. And somewhere in the heart of the warship, Admiral Nari lay awake in her bed, thinking about a human who made her feel things she had not felt in years. The war continued. The universe did not care about their feelings. But for one night, at least, two enemies had found something like peace. The Night of Fallen Stars was the most important holiday for the Valari. It celebrated the ancestors who had died, the heroes who had sacrificed, the spirits that watched over the living. Every Valari ship stopped fighting for one night. Every soldier put down their weapons. Every family gathered to remember those they had lost. On the Crimson Sovereign, the celebration was beautiful. The Great Hall was filled with floating lights, thousands of them, each one representing a soul that had passed. Music played softly through the ship. The crew wore their finest clothes and shared special foods. Tejo was invited to watch from a balcony above the main hall. It was a kindness he had not expected. He stood there alone, looking down at the Valari celebrating, thinking about how strange his life had become. A few months ago, he had been a simple salvage pilot. Now, he was living on an enemy warship, learning an enemy language, and feeling things for an enemy commander that he could not name. He saw Nari in the crowd below. She was wearing a dress of deep blue, her silver hair decorated with small lights. She looked beautiful. She also looked tired. The responsibilities of command never stopped, not even on holidays. Yuri ran through the crowd in a white dress, laughing, chasing other children. She looked up and saw Tejo on the balcony. She waved happily. He waved back. The night grew late. The celebrations began to quiet. Crew members returned to their rooms. The floating lights dimmed slowly, one by one, like stars going out. Tejo decided to return a book that Yuri had lent him. It was late, but he thought he might leave it outside the Admiral's quarters for her to find in the morning. He walked through the quiet hallways, the book in his hands, thinking about nothing in particular. He reached the Admiral's door and stopped. The door was open. Not just unlocked, but forced open. The metal was bent around the lock, broken by something strong. 2 guards lay on the floor outside, unconscious or dead. Tejo's heart began to beat faster. He should call for help. He should run away. He should do anything except go inside. But Yuri was in there. And Nari. He went inside. The Admiral's quarters were dark. Sounds of fighting came from the bedroom. Crashes, grunts. The sharp ring of metal against metal. Tejo moved through the shadows, his body tense, his mind racing. He found them in the main room. 2 figures in black were fighting Admiral Nari. She had a blade in her hand, and she was good, very good. But she was outnumbered. Blood ran down her arm from a cut on her shoulder. One of the attackers swung at her head. She ducked, barely. And in the corner, a 3rd figure stood with a knife at Yuri's throat. The little girl was crying silently, her eyes huge with fear. The attacker held her tightly, using her as a shield. "Stop fighting, Admiral," the attacker said. His voice was cold. "Drop your weapon, or your daughter dies." Nari froze. Her eyes went to Yuri. The sword fell from her hand. "That is better." The attacker nodded to his companions. "Finish her." The 2 assassins moved forward, and Tejo moved faster. He did not think. He did not plan. He just moved, crossing the room in 2 steps, throwing himself at the assassin holding Yuri. The man did not expect it. No one expected a human prisoner to attack. Tejo hit him hard. They went down together, rolling across the floor. The knife flew from the assassin's hand. Yuri screamed and ran toward her mother. Tejo and the assassin fought on the ground. The Valari was trained. Professional. Tejo was not. But humans were stronger than Valari expected. Humans could take more damage than Valari believed possible. The assassin hit Tejo in the face. Tejo tasted blood. He hit back, harder. The assassin tried to reach his knife. Tejo grabbed his wrist and twisted until something broke. Behind them, Nari was fighting again. With Yuri safe, she had picked up her sword. She moved like water, like wind, like something that could not be stopped. One assassin fell with a cry, then the other. But the 3rd assassin, the one under Tejo, was not finished. He pulled a hidden knife from his boot and stabbed upward. The blade went into Tejo's side. Pain exploded through his body. Hot, burning, terrible pain. He screamed, but he did not let go. He kept holding the assassin down, kept fighting, kept refusing to stop, even as his blood poured onto the floor. Nari's sword came down. The assassin stopped moving. Then everything was chaos. Yuri was screaming, crying, calling his name. Nari was shouting for medics, for guards, for anyone who could help. Hands pressed against his wound. Voices yelled in Valari too fast for him to understand. Tejo looked up at the ceiling. The lights were very bright, very far away. He saw Nari's face above him. Her gold eyes were wild with something he had never seen before. Fear. Pure fear. "Stay awake," she commanded. Her voice shook. "Do you hear me? Park Taeho? You stay awake. You do not have permission to die on my ship." He tried to speak. His mouth would not work. "The medics are coming. Just hold on. Just—" Her voice broke. Yuri was there too. Her small face wet with tears. "Uncle Taeho. Uncle Taeho. Please. Please do not go. Please." Taeho wanted to tell them it was okay. He wanted to say goodbye. He wanted to thank them for making him feel alive again. But the darkness was coming. And it was stronger than he was. The last thing he saw was Nari's face, beautiful and broken and full of 1,000 things she had never said. Then, everything went black. Time passed. Maybe hours, maybe days. Taeho drifted in and out of dreams. He saw his parents, who had died when he was young. He saw his sister, who he had not seen in years. He saw Earth, blue and green and spinning in the darkness. He saw Yuri, playing cards and laughing. He saw Nari, looking at stars. Sometimes he heard voices. Doctors speaking in quick Valari. Yuri crying. Nari giving orders. Her voice hard as iron, refusing to let anyone give up. Once, in the deepest part of the darkness, he felt someone holding his hand. Small fingers, gentle pressure. "You have to wake up," Yuri whispered. "You promised to teach me human card games. You promised, Uncle Taeho. You cannot break a promise." He wanted to wake up. He tried. Another time, another voice. Nari this time, speaking in the middle of the night when she thought no one could hear. "You stupid, brave, impossible man." Her voice was rough with exhaustion. "You should have run. You should have called for help. You should have done anything except throw yourself at armed assassins with no weapon and no plan." A pause. A shaky breath. "But you saved her. You saved my daughter. Again. You saved both of us." Her hand touched his face, gentle and warm. "So you have to wake up, Park Taeho. Because I am not finished with you yet. Do you understand? I am not finished." In the darkness, something in Taeho heard her. And slowly, painfully, impossibly, he began to climb back toward the light. Taeho opened his eyes to white light and the soft sound of machines. He was in the medical bay. The ceiling above him was smooth and clean. Tubes connected to his arms. Something beeped steadily near his head, matching the rhythm of his heart. He turned his head slowly, painfully. The room was small and quiet. Medical equipment surrounded his bed, blinking with lights he did not understand. Through the window, stars moved past in the darkness. He was alive. Somehow, impossibly, he was alive. A small weight pressed against his arm. He looked down and saw Yuri sleeping in a chair beside his bed. She was curled up like a cat, her silver hair messy, one small hand reaching through the rails to rest on his wrist. And there, in another chair, was Admiral Nari. She was also asleep. Her head leaned against the wall at an uncomfortable angle. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. She was wearing the same clothes he remembered from the night of the attack, now wrinkled and stained. She looked exhausted. How long had she been here? Taeho tried to speak. Only a rough sound came out. Nari's eyes snapped open instantly. For a moment, she looked confused. Then her gaze focused on him. Something rushed across her face. Relief. Joy. Something deeper, before she forced it back under control. "You are awake," she said. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. "How long?" Taeho whispered. 3 days. She stood up and moved to his bedside, checking the machines, adjusting tubes. Her movements were efficient, practiced. "You lost a lot of blood. The knife damaged several organs," the doctors said. She stopped. Her jaw tightened. What did they say? They said you should be dead. She finally looked at him, and he saw tears in her eyes. She blinked them away quickly. They said no one could survive wounds like that. But you did. You kept fighting. Humans are stubborn. Yes. A small, broken laugh escaped her. You are very stubborn. Yuri stirred beside him. Her eyes opened, still cloudy with sleep. Then she saw Tejo looking back at her, and she screamed, Uncle Tejo! Uncle Tejo! She launched herself onto the bed, wrapping her arms around him, crying and laughing at the same time. You woke up! You woke up! I knew you would! I told everyone you would! Tejo winced as her weight pressed on his wounds, but he did not push her away. He wrapped one arm around her and held her close. I am okay, he said softly. I am right here. You saved me. She pulled back to look at him, her gold eyes serious. The bad man had a knife, and you saved me. You are a hero. 7 Dawn, you saved me. You are a hero. I just did what needed to be done. That is what heroes do. She hugged him again, gentler this time. You are my hero forever. Over Yuri's head, Tejo saw Nari watching them. Her face was soft in a way he had never seen before. All her walls were down, all her defenses gone. She was not an admiral now. She was just a mother who had almost lost her daughter, saved by a man who had almost lost his life. Later, after Yuri had been taken away for her lessons, Nari sat alone with Tejo. The medical bay was quiet. The machines beeped softly. The doctors told me you should have stopped fighting, she said. After the first stab wound, your body should have shut down. But you kept going. You kept holding that assassin down even as you were dying. I could not let him hurt Yuri. He was going to kill both of us. Nari's voice was quiet. The assassins were from a group inside the Empire. They believe I have become weak, that I have been corrupted by keeping a human alive on my ship. They may be right about the second part. She looked at him sharply. Then, surprisingly, she laughed. It was a real laugh, warm and genuine, and it transformed her face. Perhaps they are, she admitted. She was quiet for a moment, gathering her thoughts. Then she spoke again, and her voice was different now. Serious. Formal. I have been admiral of this fleet for 7 years. In that time, many have served under me. Some have died for me. I have always honored their sacrifice, with promotions, with medals, with words. She leaned forward, her gold eyes intense. But no one has ever done what you did. No one has ever thrown themselves in front of death for my daughter, with no thought for their own life. Twice now, you have saved her, and this time, you nearly died protecting both of us. I do not need medals, Tejo said. I know. That is what makes it different. Her fingers were warm against his. In my culture, there are debts that cannot be repaid. They are called eternal bonds. Once someone creates such a debt, they are tied to the other person forever. What does that mean? It means you are no longer my prisoner, Park Tejo. Her hand tightened on his. You are free. I will personally escort you to neutral space. I will give you a ship, supplies, everything you need to return to your people. Tejo should have felt happy. This was what he had wanted since the beginning. Freedom. A way home. A return to his old life. But looking at Nari's face, hearing the pain hidden beneath her words, he felt nothing like happiness. Is that what you want? He asked quietly. For me to leave? She did not answer. She looked away, toward the window, toward the stars. What I want does not matter. This is war. You are human. I am Valari. There is no future for... She stopped herself. Her hand trembled in his. For what? It does not matter. Nari. It was the first time he had called her by her name alone. She turned back to him. and he saw everything she was trying to hide. The loneliness, the longing, the fear of wanting something she could not have. "It matters to me," he said. She stared at him. The machines beeped. The stars turned outside the window. "You almost died," she whispered. "Because of me. Because of my daughter. Because you stayed on this ship instead of trying to escape. I stayed because I wanted to stay." Why? He should have said something simple, something safe, something that would not change everything. Instead, he told the truth. Because of Yuri. Because she makes me smile for the first time in years. Because she calls me uncle and means it. He paused. And because of you. Because you are the most extraordinary person I have ever met. Because when I talk to you, I forget that we are supposed to be enemies. Nari closed her eyes. A tear ran down her cheek. "You cannot say these things," she said, but her voice was weak. "I just did. The war, I do not care about the war. My people, I am not in love with your people. I am in love with you." The words hung in the air between them. Tejo had not planned to say them. He had not even fully realized they were true until they came out of his mouth. But now, they were said, and he could not take them back. Nari opened her eyes. She looked at him for a long, long moment. Then she leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his. A gesture he had learned was the most intimate sign of affection in Valari culture. "You are impossible," she whispered. "You are stubborn and reckless, and completely impossible. I know. This will destroy us both. Probably. I should send you away and never see you again." "You should." She pulled back just enough to look into his eyes. Her face was wet with tears, but she was smiling. "Stay," she said. "I am asking you to stay." Tejo smiled back, even though it hurt his wounds. "I thought you would never ask." It sat in the hangar bay of the Crimson Sovereign, small and silver, filled with supplies and fuel. The coordinates were programmed for neutral space, where a human patrol would find him and bring him home. Everything was prepared for his departure. Everything except Tejo himself. He stood at the observation deck, looking out at the stars, thinking about the choice in front of him. In a few hours, he would walk to that hangar. He would climb into that shuttle. He would fly away from this ship, from the Valari, from everything that had happened over the past months, from Yuri, from Nari. The thought made his chest hurt more than his healing wounds. Admiral Nari had kept her promise. She was giving him his freedom. She had announced it to her crew, ignored the protests of her officers, and prepared everything herself. She was doing the honorable thing. But Tejo had seen her face when she made the announcement. He had seen the way her smile did not reach her eyes. He had heard the slight shake in her voice when she said, "The human has earned his freedom." She did not want him to go. She was just too proud, too dutiful, too afraid to ask him to stay again. The door behind him opened. Small footsteps approached. "Uncle Teo?" He turned to see Yuri standing there, her silver hair messy, her golden eyes red from crying. She was holding something in her hands, a small box wrapped in colorful paper. "Yuri, what are you doing here? It is late. I could not sleep." She walked to him and held out the box. "I made you a present." Tejo knelt down to her level. He took the box carefully and opened it. Inside was a small figure, carved from wood, painted with bright colors. It was a human man with brown hair and a smile, wearing a Valari jacket. It was him. "I made it myself," Yuri said. Her voice was thick with tears. She was trying not to cry. "So you will not forget us. So you will remember that you have a family here." Tejo looked at the little figure. His throat was tight. "Yuri," he said softly, "I could never forget you." She threw herself into his arms and began to cry. "I do not want you to go. I know I am supposed to be brave, but I do not want you to go. You are my Uncle Tejo. You are supposed to stay forever." Tejo held her while she cried. He stroked her hair and whispered gentle words. But inside, His heart was breaking. When Yuri finally stopped crying, she pulled back and looked at him with serious eyes. "Mother cries too," she said quietly. "At night, when she thinks no one can hear. She cries because you are leaving. Your mother is very strong. She will be okay." "No." Yuri shook her head firmly. "She will not be okay. She will be like she was after father died. Cold and sad and far away. I do not want her to be like that again, Uncle Tejo. I like her better when she is with you. She smiles with you." Tejo did not know what to say. Yuri took his hand in both of hers. "You do not have to go. You could stay. We could be a family. You and me. And Mother. We could be happy." "It is not that simple, Yuri." "Why not?" He opened his mouth to explain. To talk about war and duty and politics and all the complicated reasons why he had to leave. But looking at her face, so young and honest and full of hope, he could not find the words. Why not? It was a simple question. Maybe it deserved a simple answer. The next morning, the hangar bay was full of people. Officers stood in formal lines. Crew members watched from the upper levels. Everyone had come to see the human prisoner leave. Admiral Nari stood at the front, dressed in her finest uniform. Her face was calm, composed, perfect. Only someone who knew her well could see the pain hiding behind her eyes. Yuri stood beside her mother, holding her hand tightly. She was not crying anymore. She was trying to be brave. Tejo walked through the crowd toward the shuttle. His wounds were mostly healed now, though he still moved carefully. People stepped aside to let him pass. Some looked relieved to see him go. Others looked almost sad. He reached the shuttle and stopped. The ramp was down, waiting for him. One step, and he would be inside. A few minutes, and he would be flying away. He turned to look at Nari and Yuri, mother and daughter, standing together, about to lose someone they loved. The same golden eyes, the same hidden grief, the same stubborn pride that would never ask him to stay again. Tejo thought about his life on Earth, about his empty apartment, his meaningless job, his years of loneliness and regret. He thought about the war that would continue, whether he was in it or not. He thought about duty and honor and all the things he was supposed to believe in. Then he thought about Yuri's laugh when he told her jokes, about Nari's smile when they talked under the stars, about the feeling of belonging that he had found on this enemy ship, with these enemy people, in the middle of a war that suddenly seemed very far away. What did it mean to be human? Was it the flag he was born under? The species he belonged to? The war he was supposed to fight? Or was it something else? Something about connection and love and the choice to build family in the most unexpected places. Tejo made his decision. He stepped away from the shuttle. The crowd went silent. Officers looked at each other in confusion. Nari's eyes widened. Tejo walked back through the crowd, back toward the woman and the child who had become his whole world. He stopped in front of them and smiled. "There has been a mistake," he said. Nari's voice was barely a whisper. "What mistake? You gave me my freedom. You said I could leave." He looked into her eyes and let her see everything he felt. "But you never asked if I wanted to." Hope and fear battled on Nari's face. "Tejo, I have spent 10 years fighting a war I never believed in. I have followed orders and killed enemies and pretended that any of it mattered. And in all that time, I have never felt like I belonged anywhere." He reached out and took her hand. "Then I crashed into your lives, and your daughter taught me how to laugh again. And you..." His voice broke slightly. "You reminded me what it feels like to hope for something." Yuri was crying now, happy tears streaming down her face. "Uncle Tejo, you are staying." "Yes, little one, I am staying." She screamed with joy and threw herself at him, wrapping her arms around his waist. He picked her up and held her close, her small arms tight around his neck. And Nari, Admiral Kang Nari, terror of the Second Fleet, the coldest commander in the Valari Empire, laughed through her tears and pulled them both into her arms. The crowd watched in stunned silence. Commander Bay's face was twisted with disgust, but others were smiling, moved by the scene despite themselves. Grandfather Han wiped his eyes and nodded approvingly. "The universe works in strange ways," he murmured. In the center of the hangar, 3 people held each other as if the galaxy might tear them apart at any moment. Human and Valari, enemy and enemy, choosing love over war. It would not be easy. There would be problems, politics, people who wanted to destroy what they were building. The war would continue. The universe did not care about their happiness, but in that moment, none of it mattered. Because sometimes, the greatest victory has nothing to do with battles or territory or power. Sometimes, the greatest victory is much simpler. It is the choice to stay. It is the courage to love. It is the stubborn human refusal to accept that enemies must always remain enemies. Park Tae-ho looked at Yuri's shining eyes, at Nari's tear-stained smile, and knew he had finally found what he had been searching for his whole life. Home, not a place, not a planet, a family. And that was worth more than all the stars in the sky. In the hangar of an enemy warship, surrounded by people who should have been his enemies, a human soldier finally understood what it truly meant to be human. And the universe, just for a moment, seemed a little less cold. The end.